Check, check, check. Ooh, we're good.
Sounds pretty good.
Okay, we're live. Lucas Palmer.
How you doing?
What's up, big dog? Where do you live?
In Hayden.
You do?
Yep, Hayden, Idaho.
Are you like for life, North Idaho?
If I can, you never know where work might take you. So,
Are you born and raised?
no, I'm not actually.
Are you from California?
I originally, yes. I am
knew
from
it.
California.
I could smell it. I'm joking. I'm joking. What part of California are you from?
So I grew up on a cattle ranch about 2 hours south of the Bay Area.
Okay. My buddy Jake Webb, originally from California, yeah. He used to film for me, and he's still a bud, but he still got the area code 559 in the beginning of it. And I'm like, man, you got to change your phone, bro. He might have. No, he hasn't. He hasn't. But when did you become a transplant?
I went from California to Nevada,
okay.
7th grade. Spent teen high school years in Nevada, and then I went to Boise State.
Oh, you did?
Yep, for engineering. And so
Broncos?
Broncos. That's when I first came to Idaho and loved it ever since. I actually chose the state to go to school because of the hunting opportunities.
Clearly.
And big factor for me of why I wanted to come to Idaho. And then for work, had to go to Denver for a couple years, and now I have the ability to work from home right now. And so
really,
well, as long as it stays that way, we'll stay here for a while.
I wonder why you chose Hayden over like the Treasure Valley, Boise area.
Yeah, so actually we looked at every corner of the state. We actually lived in Idaho Falls for a while.
Did you like that?
Yes and no.
Why no?
So for us, it kind of came down to a culture thing there.
Say less. Okay.
Yeah.
Why yes?
Why yes
to Idaho Falls?
To Idaho Falls. Great opportunity around there.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of nice people live there. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Really a great town. I think we really enjoyed living there. We had some friends that were there at the time that like let us stay in a house they had while we were kind of looking for places. And it was very, you either had people that were just overly welcoming and nice, or the flip side of the coin.
Yeah.
And, just felt like there wasn't a ton of opportunity for children there. And my wife and I had a young daughter at the time. She was 7 months old. Okay. And so we were kind of like, where would we really want to settle down with kids? And that was kind of a big factor for us. We were really looking at schools, really looking at like the environment, what opportunities would they have, et cetera. Loved Boise, but in the 4 years that we were gone, it had changed so much that we weren't really sure that we wanted to go back there. And we both love the snow in the mountains. My aunt and uncle used to live up here in Post Falls. Okay. And they raved about it and always talked about it. And so I had the opportunity to actually come up here with them, meet some of their friends, and just kind of fell in love with the area.
Yeah.
The first time I was up here, we were staring at a bed and breakfast in Athol and woke up, and there were an elk screaming in the field. And I was like, I'm hooked now.
Okay,
so.
That's cool. I get it. How old are your kid or kids now?
Yeah, I've got 3, 7, 5, and 3. That's
a good spread. The 7 and 5-year-old, they don't have school on Fridays?
They do not, no.
Isn't that crazy? Somebody emailed me and was like, hey, what's your school plan with your kids now that you're in Idaho? I'm thinking about moving to Idaho. Like, I'm worried that the schools aren't good in Idaho. And I was like, here's the deal. You don't need to put your kids in private unless you want to.
Yeah, you definitely don't.
But one of the main reasons I moved to Idaho is I liked I didn't think anything weird was going to be taught at public school. And that's just my opinion. Please don't be offended by that, viewers. But just, I made somebody mad in a elk hunting video. It's this year's Public Land Hustle. I'm driving into Idaho, and I was telling all the viewers that I'm hunting, and I guess we just moved to Idaho. Like, the house closed while I'm gone.
Yeah.
I had to hire a bunch of guys to move in and help my wife. My wife's a saint. Who would make their wife move their whole house while they're hunting? Yeah. I would. But I did make arrangements, and my wife is a trophy, just a queen, and can handle it. But I said one line: I'm moving from a blue state to a red state. That's all I said. And somebody emailed me and was like, you could lose a lot of viewers and a lot of subscribers by saying stuff like that. You really need to keep politics out of your YouTube videos. And I was like, number one, I don't make decisions based on fear of losing anything, because I'm going to die someday. I'm going to lose everything anyways. Like, I don't own a thing on this planet, right?
Yep.
What do you actually own?
Yeah, nothing.
You're borrowing and renting everything.
That's right.
Okay. So please don't live your life in fear. And number two, I'm not a very political dude, but I did move to Idaho mainly. One of the reasons was the schools.
Mm-hmm.
They actually perform really well on the test out charts.
Mm-hmm.
And the good teachers, they don't pay the teachers well, but what they incentivize them with is that, hey, you got 3-day weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to get paid as good as a teacher in Washington, but you are going to live in Idaho and you are going to have every Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. I think it does attract a certain level of educators. So we've had nothing but great experiences at our kids' school.
Yeah.
Same for you?
It's been fairly good.
Yeah.
We're considering homeschooling actually.
Talk to me.
Primarily so oldest is only in first grade. Great teachers are great. However, you can't control what teacher your kid gets is a big factor. And so if, for example, our oldest kindergarten had a great teacher, first grade struggled. And she went from loving school, wanting to go every day, to crying at drop off and praying that she would find her voice to like be herself again. And as a 7-year-old,
That's some heavy shit right there. That breaks my heart.
Yeah. Like as a dad, And so my wife and I talked about it a lot. It's like, well, what do you do? Because you can't control. And we're tough parents. I'll say that. We're strict. We expect a lot, probably too much, like fault on us. But we also try to support them as much as we can. And in that situation, we're like, all right, well, this is adversity, right? There's times when you're gonna have to work with people that you might not be very good with. So this is one of those times you're gonna have to see if you can work through it. And so she was a trooper, man. She pushed and kept trying and, tried to have a good attitude about it. And it was just like nothing was changes. So we went and we talked to the teacher, talked to the principal, and we're like, what can we do? Like, we want her to love school. She's first grade. Like, yeah, later on they might start not liking school as much. Most kids kind of do. But at first grade, like, what can we do here? And ended up getting like, okay, we're going to try some things. And then solution was like, well, let's move her classes and see how that changes.
Okay.
And it was a week turnaround. She went from crying, not wanting to go to school to like a week later. She's like, I'm liking school again.
So what was the main reason that she was upset?
Honestly, trying to get that out of a 7-year-old, she just felt like her teacher was on edge all the time from her words.
I guarantee that's the truth. And here's what I'm going to say. My son has a teacher that probably should be retired. Like, I literally hear every day, like, oh man, Mrs. whatever her name is. I'm not gonna say her name, but like she told us we were a disaster yesterday and let's have a better day. And like, he's told me that like so many times in the school year that I'm like, and she is up there in age, and I'm not age discriminating.
No,
or maybe I am, but I don't know. I'm just saying, like, she's definitely at that kind of end of her career. And I kind of wish sometimes he had a different, like maybe a more youthful teacher, because man, when you're teaching 8-year-olds, God bless you, first and foremost.
Yeah, you're a saint.
You're a saint, especially my son. He's a pain in the butt. I mean, he's been written up. I can't even tell you how many times. And I've been called by the principal. I can't tell you how many times. And like, he's a little troublemaker. But you know what? We are strict at home, and there are consequences for your actions. You know what I mean? So it's good to hear that a new environment changed the thing. And I love that you as parents are connected and like your radar's up, and that the school was willing to work with you.
Yeah.
But our overall experience is like my daughter is really getting a great education. She really is. And she's tested into they have a program, like gifted and talented program. So now she's pulled away from her normal class once a week and doing stuff that's like 7th grade level, and she's only in 5th grade. And a few problems that I'm like, I might have to look up how to do that again. And she's also in a math club. My daughter's very academic oriented, and my son is very sports oriented, as you can tell. But like, I'm excited for them to be into Idaho and to walk to school and to play with kids in the neighborhood. Man, my house in Idaho, I don't have a bow at my house. Like I could shoot 5 yards in my backyard. It's a great neighborhood, great house, but like I don't have computers there for working and editing and emailing. Like it is designed shut my shit down
Yeah.
and be a father and be a
I
husband.
think that's fantastic.
It is the only reason I'm still married. I mean, I literally took it to the brink with getting ELKSHAPE off the ground, you know, and that's my personality. It sounds like you're the same. You're like all or none.
Yeah, I dive in pretty heavily when I choose to do something, and kind of have the mentality that I will figure it out one way or another. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Maybe bring my wife in and ask her. But yeah, so when I kind of decide like this is what I'm doing, I buckle down and, you know, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna make it work, and, you know, kind of go in. And that's kind of how school was with her. It was just like, all right, well, let's make it work, and, you know, we'll see what the future holds. And yeah. Idaho schools are great. You know, there's so much there, and so many options you have, that I think they're great. Like, I have no quarrel against Idaho schools at all. They have a lot of good things on them.
You are a bow hunter.
Yeah.
How long have you been a bow hunter?
So I would say I officially started bow hunting in college.
Okay.
I had played with bows in childhood, but could never afford one. So,
right,
you know, on growing up on the ranch, I would make bows out of willows and stuff like that, but never bow hunted. You know, sure, made bows, shot bows, stuff like that. But college is when I said I'd love to start bow hunting, and one of the big pushes of that for me was time. Going to school, it's like, man, I don't have much time. The archery season's a month long.
And when did your school start? Like, was BSU quarters or semesters?
Semesters.
So they probably start early.
Yeah, we started. So like I was elk season, for example, September I'd be in school. So it was, you know, weekends I'd bust out, and I worked Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and went to school the other time. So I'd usually like leave school Friday. You know, go camp somewhere, hike in, try to maybe like leave Saturday night so I go to work at 5 a.m. on Sunday.
Where did you work at during college?
So I worked a couple places. I worked at an outlet mall. I did 3 internships, and then my last 2 years of college, I transitioned into a manufacturing engineer job that kind of started as an internship and just kind of kept going. And they offered me a position out of college, and decided to go a different route. But so you just kind of worked a lot of times even 2 jobs. The outlet mall was like my steady, and then I'd pick up internship here, small, you know, engineering job there, drafting job, whatever. And sometimes it would be a couple months, sometimes they'd be longer, but usually it wasn't steady work, and it wasn't something I could rely on to, you know, pay bills and stuff. So the outlet mall was my steady, and then I would just kind of pick up, you know, here and there what I could to get experience, to just, you know, try to help me get a job when I got out.
My freshman year of college was 2000, the fall of 2000, and I wasn't a bow hunter yet. I didn't know about bow hunting. Like I just got back into hunting, and that was the first year I killed a bull with a rifle. So the fall of my sophomore year, I talked to my boss, had all the month off, talked to my clients. I was a personal trainer by that point, and talked to my professors at this. I went to community college to get an AA. So I'm like a sophomore, and I talked to those guys, and I said, okay, we were on quarters. So we didn't start till like the 3rd week in September. And so I went ahead and reached out to my professors and was like, hey, I'm going to miss the first week. I won't be able to start till like October 1st. Can I get the first week's worth of work? And they all said yes. So sophomore year, didn't miss a day of elk season. And then I transferred to Eastern Washington University for undergrad, did this, and they were on quarters. And I think they started even later.
Oh, nice.
So like I would also reach out to my professors, and I never really missed a September because I had the quarter system. Now, if I'd been on semesters, I don't think you can negotiate the entire month off, even if you're the customer.
No, because we started in like middle of August, I believe.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen.
You know, it's like, yeah, you know, attendance was kind of everything. If you didn't show up to class, a lot of times they would be like, hey, you know, we're dropping you.
So if you've been bow hunting for 10 plus years now, how many years?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
10 plus years.
I graduated so I started college 2010, graduated 2015. And so let's call it, I don't know, sophomore year, maybe in somewhere in there when I picked up a bow. So yeah, 10 years sounds about right. Maybe a little longer.
Okay. And so this is the point of the pod. Like you couldn't help yourself.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And you were like, I think I want to build something on a spreadsheet. Next thing you know, it's an app. Next thing you know, you're sending me an email like to try it, which I don't. And then you send a follow-up email. And I was like, oh, I don't want to just flake on this guy. And I finally can see, it was like, you just come over and show me it in real life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we did that today.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty freaking impressed. What is the name of your app?
So the app name is Pro Archery Ballistics. And yeah, it's on iOS and Android. And that kind of came about. Last January, I decided, I was like, man, I feel like there's so much wrong information, kind of misunderstandings when it comes to archery, and especially like the physics side. And like, that's kind of my background, right? Like I can talk about this, like, okay. And I started making videos, said, man, no one's going to watch these. These are so in the weeds that there's going to be 5 guys that watch this video and are still going, what are you talking about? And so I just kind of kept making videos. And to do that, I needed to know, like, what was the downrange performance of an arrow? You know, momentum, energy, time to target, all that. And so, well, to find that out for any arrow, rather than trying to buy a bunch of arrows and shoot them and measure velocities and stuff like that, it's like, well, it's just aerodynamic drag. Let's see if we can figure this out. So I do a lot of research in my day-to-day job. And so research is something that I'm very good at. So first thing I was like, well, what's already been done? And so I went out there and I was like looking at different research papers and studies and aerodynamic drag, found a great one actually by the Japanese Institute of Sports Technology.
Yep.
And they did a whole drag study on arrows. And kind of that's where I started. They actually had measured a drag coefficient for arrows and gave a range based on something that's called a Reynolds number, which is very specific to drag. And that's kind of where I started. I was like, okay, well, if I know this, I know the properties of the arrow, I can make some assumptions on other things, and we can figure this out. And then from there, it was like, okay, let's kind of see how close I am. Let's look at stuff people have done with lab radars. I'm going to say, okay, I see what van you're using. Maybe you're going to tell me the arrow weight, maybe not, but you're going to tell me some velocities, and I can kind of guess the rest. I can see what arrow you're using. I can look it up and say, you're probably using this spine because you're, 28-inch draw and shooting 70 pounds. You're probably a 300. Mm-hmm. So there's my size and stuff, and let's see how close I am. And on a lot of those, I was within a couple feet per second at 60 yards. I'm like close enough for what I was doing to continue.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, my math is good, essentially, right? Like it's kind of matching what people are getting. And every time there was an anomaly, I could figure out exactly what that was, whether it was a high helical or feathers really drag a lot more. A weak spined arrow shaft that flexes a lot more coming out of the bow, higher drag coefficient. So, and it always transitions from laminar flow to turbulent flow. And so that's that 1.6 to 2.6 we talked about today.
The laminate flow?
Laminar flow.
So, laminar? That's the last name of somebody who figured this shit out?
That's a good question. I do not know.
But we got Reynolds number,
laminar flow,
and
turbulent flow.
Turbulent flow, got it.
Yeah, so you've probably experienced all these and just didn't know what you were looking at, right? If you are... let's say you're going through water, right? Or you're fishing. You got a rock in the middle and you see the water coming around the rock. Well, the backside of the rock, what always happens, the water gets turbulent, right? Because it's turbulent flow.
Got it.
Right. On the front of the rock, it grips to the rock and flows around, right? That's laminar flow. So you have a laminar region and a tubular region, right?
Knucklehead can follow that.
Yeah. And so we do a lot of things, whether it's from golf balls to, the design and shape of things is to control that flow. The tip of an arrow is kind of important to that. You want it to stick to that tip, grab a hold of the sides of the shaft and come down. And likewise with fletchings, too steep of an angle and the flow will eddy or turbulent off the back of a fletching and you'll change your flow pattern. So that's kind of all the things that are going on here. And the big one that people don't think about is the arrow flexing as it's flying.
Right. And we're not just flexing in one direction, right? No. We have lots of things going on.
Oh, man. It's incredible to think we can hit a target when you start looking at all this.
Yes.
You're like, wow. And guys that are accurate, that are hitting, apples at 60 yards or whatever, congratulations. Like, you should feel very proud of yourself because the amount of stuff that you are controlling is insane. I mean, there's no shortness of the term there. It is wild how much you have to control, from the bow to your grip to your shooting form to the actual arrow build, and all of that changes. And so the arrow flexing, especially with a weaker spined arrow, that flexing back and forth causes the air to separate, so you get turbulent flow on the shaft. So those are some of the things that like transition you out of laminar to turbulent flow. And it's like, okay, well, that was, this case, it was as soon as I would change that number to 2.6, then all of a sudden I'm right back to that, like within 1 or 2 feet per second. So it's like, I can almost guarantee that's what's going on. And those laminar turbulent flows were from that Japanese study.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, I trust that they were doing this pretty good. And they did, a full study in a wind tunnel, looking at a whole bunch of different variables. Like, I'm going to assume that they did it correctly, right? Like, that's obviously an assumption.
Yeah.
This was a big, institute, college study type thing. So they had the money and the resources to do this kind of study. And so, yeah, that's where I started. And I had built it. And then when I started talking about it in these videos, they got way more traction than I was expecting.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, I think the biggest video I had was like 15,000 views. And
let's talk about that. Like, not very long, but I just want to tell people, please do your own YouTube channel.
Yeah, everyone, especially in the outdoor space.
You'll find an audience.
Yeah.
When it's niche based, you'll find an audience. I found one.
Yeah.
And my audience, not all of them probably like me.
Sure.
But they might like somebody I bring on, or they might like one part of what I do.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Like, I've had this community of people that I've tried to give back to and just build content for them.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should do their own YouTube channel, because I think you were pleasantly surprised to figure out you had an audience.
I was very surprised at the number of people that were not only interested, but then like comments wise of guys coming in and like questions, right? Like, well, what about this? Like, have you considered this? And so I would, absolutely. I'll talk about it. Let's talk about it. Like, that's what I viewed this as, was a discussion. So
that's cool.
This is what I talked about in the video. Here's all the questions you come about. If I know an answer, I'll give you an answer. If I'm like, I don't know, like maybe that's the next video, I can see if we can figure something out from that. And so I think that helped me a lot. One, to get people following me was just answering comments, which I was just genuinely doing it because I was like, hey, this is a great discussion, right?
Yeah.
Like one archery guy to another archery guy, and they're like, hey, I've got this question. Like, what about this? Oh, well, that would have this reaction, yada, yada, yada. And it just kind of grew from there. People, when I showed the data of like a giant Excel spreadsheet, essentially calculating the downrange energy, velocity, and all these numbers, people were like, what is this? What are you using here? Where'd you get this? And so I'm like, I built it in Excel, oh, hey, would you share it? And I did give it to a couple people, and they're like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Exactly.
It's 8 pages of Excel spreadsheets that like, what do I change? What don't I change?
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, clearly that's not the way to do this. And so I started looking out. I was like, maybe a website, like, can I dumb it down, like only inputs and then just show you the results?
Yes, please.
Ended up coming to an app format. And
wait, do you know code?
No, not at all. No, actually, my extensive coding was I took one C+ class in college, which is very kind of basic. As mechanical, like our extensive coding is typically if we're going to code like controls on a machine.
Sure.
So it's like yes, no code.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. But again, research, and when I put my mind to something, I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Dang.
There's tons of resources out there.
Yeah.
If you want to learn code, especially for mobile applications, there's so much information out there.
That's cool.
Is it going to take you time? Absolutely. It's going to take you a long time. And
there's probably a pretty steep learning curve.
It's absolutely a steep learning curve. And then there's, to a certain degree, the first question is like, okay, here's what I want. And the next question is, how do I do it?
Right.
And you're like, all right, I've built it in Excel, so I know the math side, but how do I do that in code? And how do I show it? And then how do I tell the app to do it when I want it to do it? And how do I handle inputs? And yeah, it was just a massive, put your head down and figure it out. And so I spent April to June with my head buried. When I wasn't working, I would be working on this. And so I'd get up early. I would, do videos, code part of the app. So like as I was learning, I was coding it. And so I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Okay, let's search for something of how to do that.
Okay.
And then, okay, that's how I do that part. Okay, here we go.
Right.
Build this part. Let's move forward. And yeah, I was able to build it pretty fast from what I expected, to be honest. I didn't realize I'd be able to do it as quickly as I did. From about April timeframe is when I started, and I released iOS in June. And then it was like, okay, now it's time for Android.
Here we go.
Yeah. Well, the problem is they're two different languages
for
of
sure.
code. And so I was like, oh, great, I got to do this again. And it was kind of like, well, let's see how Apple does first.
Yeah,
to whether
for
I
sure.
want to spend the time. And I mean, it was, I don't know, on a month, and I had enough that it was paying for itself. And I was like, okay, there's every day I was still kind of doing YouTube at that point, and guys are asking me, when's the Android version coming? All right, okay.
Fine.
Okay, I got to do it. Like, everyone's still asking for it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So again, put my head down, kind of got distracted by hunting a little bit.
Good.
And, it was end of November. We officially got Android out there, and still got some stuff that's not in Android that's in iOS that I'll probably be adding over. Still kind of thinking about whether that's needed or not. And
they'll let
just
you
kind of
know.
going from there. Yeah.
Oh, they'll let you know.
Yeah, it's probably the least talked about version of the portion of the app, I should say, and because it's based on penetration estimates. And
really,
yeah. So one video I did was using there's a conceptual model called the Poncelet model. Poncelet. Yeah.
Okay.
Which
That's
is
somebody's last name.
It is.
Okay.
It absolutely is.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to say it's also sometimes called the Myers model, but I might be wrong on that.
I've heard that one. Okay.
And so
proceed. And we're going to talk about momentum versus kinetic energy in this calculation?
Not at all, actually.
Good. Okay.
So this formula, actually came across this through military research. This is kind of the same concepts they use when they're talking about bunker busting bombs and will a tank round go through armor, that kind of thing, right? And so it really looks at, I want to get through a medium. And a medium is just something, an object, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's what you need to know about that. First, what is the projectile?
Right.
That's kind of your first question, because bullets and arrows are not the same. Bullets expand, they change shape, and that's a huge difference between bullets and arrows. Arrows, ideally, shouldn't change shape, right?
Yep.
Like, your broadhead should stay intact. It shouldn't flex too much on impact. You definitely shouldn't break. That'd be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And go from there. And I ended up finding a model that had described an elongated rod is what they were examining. So I'm pretty sure it came from railgun research,
okay.
But that part of the document was probably classified, so it wasn't disclosed. So, and this is publicly released. You could go find, you could go find this. It's nothing private that I'm not supposed to talk about. So I went through their model and what they had talked about and how they had kind of come to this conclusion and all the stuff they had done with it. And I was like, well, if I make some assumptions, I can kind of apply that to an arrow system. One of the assumptions is like, okay, I have to factor in the broadhead somehow, because this is just a cylindrical elongated rod.
Right.
So I got to factor in the broadhead, and that's just kind of a frontal area change, to that system. We're going through tissue of animal and hide. So there's various densities and viscosities of like those features that I'm going to have to use an average for.
Yeah.
And so like I did it purely to say, okay, if we are considering all of these different variables, what kind of matters? What kind of wins? And yeah, does heavier arrows penetrate more? Sure. There's some truth to that. Velocity and impact is a huge thing that matters. It just creates such an initial force and kind of shockwave that it has a lot more tissue resistance because of that velocity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a point there where, regardless of mass, a slower arrow can actually outpenetrate a faster arrow. And it really comes down to that initial, like the tissue resistance. It doesn't resist the slower arrow as much. It's like slowly pushing through something versus like trying to slam your way through it, and you feel a lot more resistance against you when you try to slam your way through it. And that's kind of what the model predicts.
Okay.
Right. And purely an estimate. Like, how accurate is it? However, they felt it accurate enough to use it in the military. Is my estimate? I don't know. I use it as a comparison. Now, as a comparison, it's fine because your air is the same throughout, right? So if I'm 20% off, well, I'm 20% off on all of them. But if I still have a 30% difference between the two, then,
noted.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, it's like, okay.
It's a good observation.
It's right. It's like, okay, there still is a difference, an increase or a decrease. And so talked about that. That's the only thing that I haven't added in the Android version, and I don't know that I will. One of the big reasons I actually even put that in to begin with is my wife. So she bow hunts as well.
Okay. Hey guys, we're going to interrupt the pod today to bring you a little information about one of our new partners, Latitude Outdoors. I've been looking for a saddle partner for a long time, and I've been very picky. I finally found the one. Latitude, they're out of Michigan. They're just a bunch of regular blue-collar dudes who get after it for whitetail. And for me, I'm a huge whitetail guy. Some of you didn't know that. And I will be using these for out west whitetails in eastern Washington, North Idaho, western Montana, to name a few. But what you didn't know is that I'm going to be utilizing this for elk hunting as well, especially midday sits over wallows. Instead of taking a nap on the side of the mountain, I'm going to scurry up any tree I want at any pinch point, funnel, or wallow, and hopefully stack the odds in my favor when it comes to punching that out west elk tag. Same thing for spring bear over bait. A lot of times I've only had one tree stand set up for bears, and when the wind is wrong or the prevailing's off, I can't sit it. Now I can sit any tree at the bait that's appropriate for the current wind. And thermals and prevailing change a lot in the mountains, as you guys know. So getting elevated, super lightweight climbing sticks, awesome platform, the Maverick saddle. Check out Latitude Outdoors. Hey guys, we interrupt this podcast to let you know about one of our partners, MagView Gear. This is also made in America and has a lifetime warranty. It is a simplified system to put a simple magnet on the back of your phone or phone case. And that is it. No special cases. The magnet attaches to the S1 or the B1. S is for spotter. B is for binoculars. You can digiscope with either options. You can get the entire thing as a kit. You can use all three lenses. It also has an app that you can download for free if you need help getting everything centered and switching from lens to lens. MagView Gear, proudly made in America. Again, lifetime warranty. Discount code ELKSHAPE takes 10% off. Hey guys, interrupt the pod today to tell you about my good old buddy MFJJ. He's got a pretty cool website, podiumarcher.com, carries a lot of stuff for archery. And if you're looking for one-stop shopping when it comes to archery, he's got you. Throw the discount code ELKSHAPE in your cart. It'll save you 10%. Back to the pod.
25-inch draw, 43 pounds.
Yeah.
Has wounded an animal before. And after that, was very nervous about taking a shot.
Do you blame her?
Not at all.
Seriously.
Not at all. I've wounded things. I've been down that path before myself. Worst feeling.
And it will happen to everyone if you bow hunt long enough.
Absolutely. Yep. And her dilemma was, am I being ethical? Like, can I even pull enough poundage to kill an animal? And so I wanted to give her some reassurance of like, look, you absolutely can.
Yep.
Like, do we need to put a little bit more thought into like what you're shooting and how, like your broadhead choice for sure, your arrow for sure, your bow tune 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But can you ethically kill an animal? Absolutely. And then was able to, kind of walk through that, did that with her, got her back out there. She killed her first deer and was just blew through it. And the arrow was like in the dirt, like 4 or 5 inches or something like that. And she was just like,
oh, sweet.
That worked. And
that's really cool, man.
Before that, I hadn't put much thought in my systems. I'd kind of just go down to the pro shop, have my bow set up. Here's an arrow, go shoot.
Yeah.
Had never applied much of my background knowledge to it. I was just like, just shoot your bow. And
can I ask what your wife's setup was before and after the intervention? Because I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Did she not use a cut-on contact? Did she not? I mean, obviously, like a 25-inch draw length, your spine's not 250. So then you have this lighter GPI. So, like, where do you make up for it? How do you adjust, the FOC? And does the total arrow weight really matter? Or, like, what did she shoot before? What did she shoot afterwards? Because I don't want to have a debate on heavy versus light. I don't want to get into the weeds. It's not really I don't care what people use at the end of the day. Whatever gives them most confidence. But what did she do?
Yeah. So small 2-blade broadhead.
Okay.
That's going to be the most efficient. That was number one change. Make sure it is sharp.
Yep.
which I've experienced some broadheads out of the packages that I have not found to be sharp, personally speaking.
We all have. Yep.
Right. And so, again, something we'd never.
And word gets out on those ones real quick.
Yeah. Never thought about, right? Just like, yeah, throw it on your bow, go shoot. You're fine. So, good broadhead. And then really got into bow tuning to make sure our bows were dialed correctly.
Leaking no energy.
Correct.
Okay.
Not only that, but hitting a target square.
That would be nice.
You know, because it doesn't matter. Like if you're, shooting field tips and your arrow's coming out sideways and you're hitting a golf ball at 100 yards, like you're cool. But as soon as you put a broadhead in the front and try to shoot an animal with that arrow that's hitting sideways, you're going to have some big problems.
You're going to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was definitely is a critical thing that everyone, like, first and foremost, pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Like forget mass, broadhead, anything. That's probably your number one. Then you go to broadhead. And so we did that. And then it was, and we can get into the math on it if you want, err on a stiffer, not like overly stiff, but I would go at least one stiffness more than what the charts are recommending for you.
I always do that. I always get comments like, Dan, yours too stiff. And I'm like, quite honestly, I don't even know if that is such a thing. But I usually get, like, my charts always show 340, 350. I've never used that. I always drop down to 300.
Yeah, and I think hers say like 500 spine, and she's shooting a 400 spine.
Okay.
One up. Put a little bit more weight in the front. That's not a bad thing. Especially at her, like a 400 spine arrow at, I don't know, I think her arrow's like 26 inches or something like that. It's pretty short, right? It's hard to get weight in that arrow without getting a lot of weight forward and weakening your spine. So she's not shooting anything crazy. It's a 100 grain broadhead. I want to say she's got like a 100 grain insert in it for a little bit more. And just under 5 is what her total arrow weight is.
Yeah.
And the FOC is pretty high. I mean, she's got a
like
tiny
over
arrow.
20?
I don't know that it's over 20.
Yeah, I don't know if that's okay.
Which I think there's definitely some valid reasons to have higher FOC as long as you're not compromising your tune.
Agreed.
And
I think there's a spot where it's like diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out what that is for you by shooting your group tuning and all that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Do your due diligence. And because I get a lot of guys that message me like, hey, my FOC is 13.5%. Do you think I need to bump up? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, how's your groups?
Yeah.
How's your flight? How's your tune? I mean, I don't have a magical number. I always aim for 15%.
Sure.
But I don't freak out if it's at 14 or 16 or 17. I just don't freak out. I just go test and vet. That's what I want people to do. That makes sense what you said there as far as just those adjustments, and then it went through that deer like butter, which is great.
And the weight was really the last thing we thought about. It was just, okay, let's get you a good broadhead up front. Let's get a little bit more weight forward. And then let's find a spot that you're liking. And just that's where it came out to. And, Idaho does have a minimum weight.
Yeah, is it 40?
Well, no, I mean on arrow weight.
Oh, yeah, is it 300,
350?
I think
it's 350,
like that,
right? And so before, very easy for someone shooting a 500 spine originally. Yeah. Right. And at that GPI and 100 grain head with the standard stuff, you're barely legal.
Yep.
And so in that respect, I think it was like 350, maybe a little bit more was her original arrow weight, to just under 5 with a really good head. So a big jump in weight. A lot of that came from spine. But that was her change. And really focusing on the tune was a big part of that. And then she's always, as most women are, just naturally, for some reason, they can shoot way better than we can.
The end. It is what it is.
I mean, she practices like 4 times a year and goes out and slaps arrows together at 40 yards. And I'm like, what? You haven't picked that thing up in 2 months.
That's really cool that she's gotten into it. And now she kind of got over that hump. And there's other people that are going to listen to this and maybe get inspired to like.
I would love if you're worried that you think that you are unethical in doing it, don't. Just put that out of your mind, because it's completely not going to happen. And especially if we consider this is the fun aspect. You talked about not being too stiff. Yeah, I would agree with that for compound bows. Right.
Oh, sure.
Right. And then so I think this is where the old adage of too stiff comes from, is traditional bows, where you're trying to shoot around a riser. So you need an arrow that will flex.
Yeah.
where modern compounds are, one, their tracking, knock tracking that is so good that you're not really flexing off the rest if your bow's tuned. Like, you're going to come out so square, it's baffling. And so as long as you do that, like, you'll be good. Is there a point where you start to lose forgiveness? Maybe, you torque it a little bit and it doesn't have the option to flex. So it just goes where you point it. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
But to say that it's too stiff, I mean, maybe, like, you'd have to really be on the crazy stiff side, I think, to really get to something that's too stiff, assuming the bow is tuned and it is good equipment, right? Like, a Chinese bow, like, I don't know, maybe they go all over the place. I have no experience with them.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that, quite honestly. Okay, so you built this spreadsheet, you built a YouTube channel, you started coding, you built iOS, and then you brought it to Android. And so let's get into what we actually did today, because I feel like we have a couple props to show and we can kind of like dive in. And then, guys, if you want to watch the video where we actually build the site tape, head over to ELKSHAPE's our YouTube channel. You'll see it on there. Pretty cool stuff. And I will kind of give some background. Like, so for the longest time building site tapes, I'd use Archer's Advantage, which is like, I can't remember back in the day. I think I'd pay like $30 and you'd have the software. And then if your computer died, you'd have to buy it again. You know what I mean? It was like a one and done. And then Tristan, I can't remember his last name. God, what's Precision Cut Archery? He got a hold of me and was like, hey, man, I kind of have this thing. Will you beta test it out? And that was really cool. And he started using a lab radar and started using the Garmin chrono, and I felt like I could really build site tapes pretty accurately, pretty fast. And he had some cool features in there. And Tristan's even coming to our elk immersion to help the guys with their site tapes, which is great. There's nothing more frustrating, Lucas, than having a site tape that is wrong. Yeah. And I think that comes from the changing conditions.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
Wind, inconsistent technique, most importantly. Equipment that's not tuned, if I haven't said that already, and so all that comes into play where, like, I've always preached to date site tapes for a while, and I have been known to adjust a site tape just ever so slightly. And I've also been known to not trust certain site tapes past 100 yards and to do my own, like, sight-in marks, quite honestly. But then you come in and I had the app that you reached out to me. When did you reach out? A couple months ago?
December, I think it was. Okay. Maybe beginning of December, middle of December, somewhere in there.
So you probably had seen the channel, knew that I lived nearby and was a nerd on archery, but not to your level. Yeah. And I was on. I was like, cool. I downloaded it. I did. And I never had messed with it. And then you followed up with me. Was it last week?
Yeah, I think it was last week, maybe the week before.
It was like, recently. Damn, I really let this guy down. Like, I never got a chance to test it. I was like, do you want to just come over and like run me through it? Had no plans of filming it, really. And next thing you know, we got cameras out and we're building some site tapes. And I saw some really unique features. Yeah. And I made it abundantly clear on that video that you did not pay me for exposure. Nope. That honestly, we're just two guys that like archery and want to show people there's different ways to skin a cat. Yeah. Let's talk about your app and how it skins the cat.
Yeah, so let's do it. So one, and this kind of came down, didn't really realize when I was building it, but there's not much in an app form, especially for site tapes. I don't know that there is any others. I think... there's one for site marks. I don't think they do tapes in it.
They don't. That's Archer's Mark?
Archer's Mark.
Yeah, I have that. That's just for site tape.
Yeah.
Marks.
Site marks.
While you're on the course, you use that.
And so that was kind of a thing. It's like, well, there's a big miss in the market here. Like, in today's age, some guys don't have a computer. And one thing that frustrates me more than anything else is trying to go to a website on a phone. I mean, if you do that, I mean, even the best designed ones are still not great. It's
Agreed.
Trying to get to menus, or sometimes they don't have all the features, or you're just it's cumbersome usually. You're trying to figure it out. And so I was like, well, great. Well, you can provide something that's not currently there. So I'm not trying to compete with people. I'm trying to provide something that's not there. So here you go. Here's an app version. And so we had to figure out, okay, it didn't start with site tapes, I guess, first off. It started with ballistics. We were just trying to say, look, here's an educational app for you to understand, what is your arrow doing? And then I actually went back and forth on whether I should charge for this or offer it free. So I built two apps for iOS originally. I built a free app that had Google Ads in it, and I built a paid app that I then incorporated site tapes with because it was going to cost money and I wanted more there to be value there.
Okay.
And I ended up discontinuing the ad version for a couple reasons. The amount of data that Google was wanting to collect on my users, I wasn't comfortable with. And I was like, man, for the pennies that I got in ad revenue, it just didn't make sense. And I was like, people, this is kind of already justifying that I just go that route. And so that's what I did. I was like, all right, here, we're gonna discontinue the free one. We're gonna go on the paid one, and I'm gonna add every feature that someone's asked. I've kind of added on it. So we can generate site tapes. You can print them directly from your phone, or you can share them to a computer or a store that does printing or whatever. You have it there. Or if you don't want to print your own tape, you can use it to find your tape quickly. That's kind of a big reason I wanted to have it true to size on screen. So you could just pull that up on your phone and be like, oh, I've got a booklet of tapes with my new site here. Which one do I want to use? All right, hey, that one matches. Let's try it. And if it doesn't, if you're finding some inconsistencies or something like that, then you can come back and figure it out later. Like, okay, we can still use site marks. I found it, like yours today, we were off at 109 was actually 116 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do we need to adjust in our drag coefficient so that it matches? Ended up going about to 2.6, and then suddenly we're about right where it should be. So now we know what our new tape should be built to. Again, we can find one if there's one that matches it. And if not, you have the option to print one.
Yep.
And then what's great is once you have all that information, you've built your site tape, I thought, why not just have it calculate based on the changes of density, of air density, what you should shoot for at a particular elevation or with a particular wind, whether it's in your face or at your back. Because a 5 mile an hour wind, especially at like 100 yards, it's incredible what a headwind will drop or a tailwind will drop increase your flight. It's pretty drastic. And so if you're failing to account for that condition when you're using a site tape and you're like, man, this tape sucks, and you've got a 5 mile wind in your face and you don't think about it because it's hardly windy. Yeah, but at 100 yards, you're going to notice it. You might miss the target and that drastic. And so added that in there, and it just kind of kept spiraling. We've got site marks now. You can do the shoot for calculator, it's called, which is custom marks that
that's the one that we should probably just kind of get people excited about. Like, I'll give you an example. I'd always kind of make some videos about going to tag and kind of how to build a site tape for tag. And I've always encouraged people to really use their hunting setup if they're like really diehard bow hunters like myself. Like, who gives, like, tag's not a competition. There's no score involved. Who gives a shit? Like, take your hunting setup and get practice at really cool shot angles that may happen in the field. So, like, bring a multi-pin, maybe slider, but a multi-pin that you would take hunting. Use your hunting arrow. Don't change to a single pin. Don't go to some light-ass tack arrow that you're not going to use for hunting.
Right.
Unless that's what you want to do. If that's what you want to do, then do that. Like, absolutely. I'll probably do that.
Yeah.
On one of the tacks.
Sure.
But whatever the last tack I go to this year, the latest one of the year, it's going to be with my hunting rig.
Yeah.
And my hunting arrows. Because, like, I want that practice at elevation. But, like, the cool with the sight in part for you, or what's it called? The sight?
It's the shoot for calculator.
Shoot for calculator is like, you easily turn on this sensor that's already in your phone.
Yep.
And you get atmospheric.
Yeah, so the phone will measure the atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
And then the only two inputs that you need that the phone can't get are the current temperature and the dew point temperature, which is like a relation to humidity to the current temperature.
Yeah.
Now, you could get something like this, which is an anemometer. This is an Amazon special. I want to say it was like $60. Now,
take my money.
So what's great about this is it does have barometric. It has relative humidity, which will give you that dew point temperature, and it has regular temperature built right into it. So, and you can measure wind speed, right? So you can, blow on it, and you'll say, oh, all right, my wind is, 0.4 miles an hour. And you can say, all right, it's coming from this direction. Yep. And in the app, I've listed it like hands on a clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And so on.
Yeah.
So around you, right? So, all right, the wind's coming, from, about 3. I guess 3 would be here. So that's 2:31, somewhere in there, right? Whatever the time, the direction is. And you'll get your wind speed, get your temperature, and you go, okay, that's going to cut off, 1 yard, and I'm going to drift, in this case, to the left, a half an inch or an inch, depending on wind speed, right? And factor all that in. And one big thing that people may or may not realize is rangefinders and how they work for an angle compensation is an estimate, right?
Yeah.
It's purely an angle cut estimate. It doesn't account gravity effects on the arrow. So what I did in the app is include that shot angle. So when you range, don't use your angle compensation range. Use the line of sight distance. And then input the angle, because the app will calculate relative to gravity what your arrow will do.
Okay, so cosine versus line of sight. Yep. And you can toggle between the two on most rangefinders?
Most rangefinders, yeah. Some don't even offer an angle compensation.
Let's do like an elk 3D target, tack. Let's say it's 15 degrees.
Sure.
Line of sight, it's 60 yards. I turn it to cosine. It's like, no, shoot it for 54. Put both those marks in.
No, it's only the 60.
Only the 60.
Yeah, and then you put the angle.
What if your rangefinder doesn't tell you the angle?
I'm working on that. I'm actually going to have you the ability to use your phone, where you can use the edge of your phone to find the angle.
Really?
And then you can just hold your phone up and, kind of look at the target along like an edge.
Yeah.
And say, all right. And then look and it'll say that's 15 degrees.
Most rangefinders nowadays, like Loophole got one. I think Vortex's Razor 4000 does, but I know the one I have, the Viper 3, doesn't give you an angle.
So it will actually if you put it in line of sight mode. I have the Viper 3 as well.
Oh, you do? That's like one of my favorite rangefinders. Okay, you'll have to show me how to do that. I feel terrible.
So as long as you take it out of angle compensation mode, it'll tell you the angle.
Oh.
In angle compensation mode, it doesn't tell you the angle.
Should do both.
I agree.
I'll email them.
I agree.
They'll be like, whatever, Dan. But no, seriously, I think they'd probably. That's cool to know. I could do this, and you get that elk target. It tells you, okay, back to line of sight 60, and then the Viper 3000 tells you it's 15 degrees.
15 degrees, yep.
You put that in, then what happens?
So the calculation in the background is adjusting. So it knows if let's say it's downhill, right? So it knows that gravity is helping to pull that arrow down, right? So that means your speed loss of that arrow is going to be less than on flat ground because gravity is helping to pull it down.
Yep.
Right. So it's going to then compensate for that. It's going to know that gravity is trying to make it go faster, even though drag is slowing it down. So it's going to know that there's a difference between uphill and downhill. Likewise, when you're shooting uphill, gravity is trying to slow the arrow down quicker. And so that's what the rangefinder doesn't do, is it just says, I'm giving you the horizontal distance. Where I'm saying in the app here is it's calculating what the actual ballistics distance will be.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so, for example, some friends and I just did that shoot down Broken Trail Bowen, I think it is, a couple weeks ago. They had a wolf that was downhill. It was rangefinder told us like 42.3 or something like that angle comp, 15 degree. So I want to say it was 44 yards line of sight, something like that. And app said like 41.6. So a lot of times it's not a huge difference. We're talking a couple of yards, right? So for hunting situations, not necessarily something you might use unless you're really out there or you have a lot of wind. Because if you added a 5 mile an hour wind to that situation, now you're talking like 3-4 yards.
Right, especially a head on.
Which as hunters.
Or a thermal updraft is head on, you know?
Okay. Exactly, right? So as hunters, I mean, ideally we're always into the wind to some degree, right? So it's going to cut to some degree.
Well,
it's
you
always
hope for
cut.
in the wind or across so we don't get smelled.
Exactly.
But I think this comes down to geeking out with the app.
It's an educational
in the field,
thing.
and like learning what your setup does.
Exactly.
And that's part that gets overlooked because everyone just walks out of their backyard and they just shoot 20, 30, 40, 50 even distances. Don't pay attention to wind much. Don't pay attention to ambient temperature, relative humidity. Like there's all these things. And I don't think people need to like get in the weeds, but like at some point, you should know your setup and know your abilities, know what you're capable of and know what you're not capable of. And that is ethical archery. Absolutely. That's ethical bow hunting.
And how many times has someone gone out on a day that maybe it was windy and it was not enough that you felt it was affecting their shooting, but it is enough that it's making your arrow drop low. And you're like, man, why? I'm just dropping everything today.
Yeah. Yep.
No, you're not. You're not compensating properly.
Yeah, your ballistics are
like
off.
you're just aiming and you're like, man, all day I've been 2-3 inches low.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you should have dialed 3 yards more.
Yep.
And that's where I've built this. It's trying to be, or at least what I want it to be, is an educational tool.
That's cool.
You know, it's like we're trying to give you everything. Here's all your ballistics data. Here's what a sight tape would be based on that ballistics data. I want to add like bow tuning aspects later on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's how you're going to do this. And I want to start at a very high level and kind of get in the weeds. But that's just stuff, you know, that'll be later on. Having the ability to use something like this in the field where you're at a tournament, and it's like, it's practice time. Let's do it. I never considered using it in a hunting aspect until I was talking to Mike Edgehouse. I think you know him. And he was like, you're telling me if I'm stalking in on a mule deer and I know that I'm going to get to here and the wind's blowing 30 miles uphill, that I can say, all right, hey, when I get to that shot, add 6 yards.
Right.
Like put it in the app and be like, yeah, it's probably going to be like 6 yards longer. I was like, I never thought about using it in a hunting situation, but you absolutely can.
That makes sense.
And,
the cool thing about this user experience that I went through today was like, I think it's pretty clean. I don't think it's clunky. And that's important. Like, guys don't want clunky.
Yeah, I've tried to make it as clean as possible.
Pretty simplified. And you kind of have 3 routes you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about the last one on the pod. But
yeah,
one is on your phone with the tape measure.
Yep.
You can literally make sure that the on-screen numbers are accurate,
mm-hmm.
which is great. And it's easy to adjust. I'm a kind of guy that has a book of sight tapes. Like, I literally, I had literally a books.
A bundle.
I had a bundle. And I could pull out one of those stock ones and just, once I get it, find the one that matches up.
Yeah.
Great. Let's just say I just am struggling to find the exact one and I'm OCD. I'm neurotic. Well, then I can print. I can print it from my phone to my computer. I can make sure that I have a backside sticky 11x8, whatever printer, or what you brought, which again, in the theme of cheap Amazon, pretty cool hack. This is a really cool option.
Yeah.
And it is a little, I would say it's like,
it takes a little bit more time to get it right.
It takes a little practice to get it right, but we're bow hunters. We know how to do that. So show us what this option looks like.
All right. So this is a cheap strip label printer is what this is. And actually, I'm going to toss this to you, Dan, because this one's for you.
Thank you, sir. Nice hands.
Down on the ground. And what you can do is you can pair this with your phone. And I'll let you, if you want to open it up, go ahead and open up there. I think I have the other one here.
These are like, what, 50, 60 bucks on?
This, I believe I paid $18 for.
Oh, now you're talking.
And it comes, so you need to buy a continuous label, which they sell. So this is basically a roll that is adhesion-backed label paper. So that means it's waterproof. It's a laser printer, so like it shouldn't smudge. It should be very durable.
That's important.
And you'll get thousands of sight tapes out of a roll. 3 rolls was $18, I think.
Okay.
So
yeah,
you buy it once, it's gonna last forever. It's rechargeable. The color was the cheapest option, so that's why I got 2 of those.
Micro USB.
Yep. Definitely.
Instructions. Psh.
Yeah, who needs those? There's a barcode on the back to open up their app that they've built for it.
Oh, okay.
And so all you need to do on the phone is what I like to do is I take a screenshot of my sight tape. I like to do the version that would print just because I think it comes a little bit more clean. But you could totally do it right from the app without clicking the print button. Take a screenshot and then just highlight the app itself. I've included some kind of guidelines on the printout version to help you line it up a little bit easier with this particular brand of label paper. And pair to your phone, once you have an image, you line that up and you print, and it'll print out a label. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up here, but I've got some examples on the back there. Now, this resolution, because these are little cheap printers.
What's the app look like?
It looks like a mushroom.
Okay, and it's called Print Master?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Get, double click, install, Face ID recognized.
Yeah, Print Master, and then when you turn, you'll turn on the printer, and it hooks up really easy. Bluetooth, I think it is, and so
perfect.
It'll just Bluetooth to that, and then on the app, the only thing you got to really do is you got to line up your sight tape on the strip, the image on the strip in the app, and you just got to get the sizing right.
Yeah,
and so if you in my app in Pro Archery Ballistics, when you go to print your sight and you click that button, on Apple, I like to click markup instead of save to folders. And then what I'll do is, and I'm sure this is going to be way too small for that camera, but
we covered it on the YouTube video.
Yeah, so go over to YouTube and watch Dan's video over there. And then I'll just zoom to the particular tape I want, take a screenshot, and then when I go and look at that image, I'll crop it down just to the big black box around that sight tape. That's kind of my sizing guide. I've sized that for this particular brand of label printer. And you can buy other ones. They might be a little different width, so you might have to play with how that size comes. But once it prints, which takes seconds.
So it even comes with one.
Yeah, so that one's not a continuous strip. It's got like sizes.
Oh, yeah.
So I just pulled that one out, put a continuous one in
Okay.
that I got over here for you to throw at you.
So I can catch this one.
Oh, got it. There you go. And it'll do a little setup when you first do it that'll have you, print your name or something like that, I think is what it tells you to do. But once it's set up, the battery lasts a long time. And yeah, it gives you an option that, maybe you're coming out from out east and you're coming out west to hunt elk and you're going from sea level to 10,000 feet or something.
Which is a real thing, man.
This might be something to have in the truck and just say, let's print a new tape because I'm way off.
And you would do this side out?
Yeah, that side out, I believe. Yep.
And it doesn't really matter which way?
No, you just got to pull it. It'll unfeed up the top. If you want to look at mine, go ahead.
Man, this is a pretty affordable way to like never have to worry about sight tapes again, honestly.
Yeah, and there is sticker paper is kind of what I use in my at-home printer to print sight tapes.
And it's just a PDF from the app that you can.
Yep.
And so
PDF.
it's like you don't have to worry about the scale. It's fine.
Yeah, it'll print. So both versions, it makes. So the Android version actually makes an image, not a PDF, and that's just problem with Android. They have no way to do that in Kotlin, which is Android language.
Wow.
And so I didn't want to try to write my own thing to figure that out. So I just created an image that's in.
Did you have to get an Android phone?
I did actually.
Okay.
I had to buy it cheap. Again, Amazon special, cheapest one I could find. That was
just to be able to double check. Man, you can get people mad if you say get this phone versus that. I don't care what phone people get, but
yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm what I do for all my editing's on a Mac Studio computer. If I want to, I don't make a lot of reels off my iPhone footage. So it's a lot of airdropping between me and other editors or other content creators in the field, photos, images, and then FaceTiming and stuff. So I lean probably more for iOS, but I don't care what phone people have.
I was such an Apple hater for years.
Were you?
Yeah, just terrible. Who would buy that?
I get it,
And then after, I don't know, it was probably my 6th Android phone that had broke in 16 months and just refused to work anymore. And I was like, screw it, I'm going to try an iPhone.
Yeah.
And I've had this one now for 3 years and it has not given me one problem.
There you go.
And I'm like, look, you want to ask why I have an iPhone? Because it has lasted 3 years.
That's saying something, dude.
And it hasn't, it still works as a phone.
Mm-hmm.
It none of the features are broken. In my previous Android phones, it was right about the time I was eligible to get a new phone, I'd get a new phone because it was failing. And I was just tired of it. I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. And it's worked. And then, started getting into video and photo and stuff like that, and bought a MacBook, and now I look like an Apple boy, and it's really not. I'm not at all. I'll say from the coding side, there's a lot of things I like about Apple over Android, but
sure,
that's in the weeds of if you've ever done with the two systems, and it's a preference thing too.
Yeah, well, let's make sure we link the video that we did today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of showing hands-on over at ELKSHAPE proper. Check that out. The one thing I want you guys to know is $4.99, not a month, but for the year, will get you this app. But I know he's going to change the price, because you are not charging enough. So
it's going to go to $9.99.
Oh.
I know it's double. It's a 50%.
I would charge more, but I mean, I don't know the tech world, but I would charge more because I'm always printing sight tapes.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
I'll a little bit of philosophy here on why I don't want to charge more. Archery is becoming such a rich man's game that I hate it. Yeah. Now I'm an engineer.
Are you rich?
No, I wouldn't classify myself as rich.
Do you think
I
I'm
make
rich?
good money. No, I don't think you're rich.
Well, none of us are rich, right?
Yeah.
But we are blessed to be able to bow hunt.
Yeah.
Which is huge. But I understand I understand your philosophy, where you're going. I just feel like what I saw was a lot of value is what I'm trying to say. Like,
I appreciate
that. That could solve a lot of problems. Like, if you want to use a computer, go to Tristan's website.
Yeah, fantastic.
If you want to use an
this
app
software is fantastic.
and you don't want to go on a website from your phone, I was blown away. I'm like, you did something pretty special here. Like, I'm really proud of you. Like, I think you're going to help some guys have more fun.
You know, fun and maybe provide some insight, right? Like, here's why stuff happened, or here, you know, when you're out practicing, you know, it's all about good practice, right? You like, why was I hitting low? Okay, well, maybe what's the density today? Oh man, it's saying that I need to dial it up 3 yards. Or maybe, man, I'm hitting high today. Oh, that's because it's they're super thin.
Yeah, instead of being like, oh, I'm going to add 2 ounces to my front bar or 3 ounces to my back, maybe you shouldn't have done any of that.
Or you're so mad, you're like, none of these sight tapes work. Every day I'm going to go in, I'm going to, you know, find my new yardage distance. And I'm like,
guilty. It sucks.
Yeah. And you're chasing your tail because you're asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, you know, put a little insight into people's, you know, setups and hopefully help some people out. So that's awesome. What it's all about.
So what's your Instagram?
So Pro Archery Ballistics is on Instagram.
Do you answer direct messages there?
All the time.
Okay, so there's a one good spot. Do you want to give your email address out?
Yeah, it's in the app, so totally fine there. proarcheryballistics@gmail.com.
Fair.
I'm probably not going to pay for a webpage on that. So
what is the name of your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so that is Lucas Palmer Archery. And
they'll find that. I'll put a link in there. Anything else?
I think covers most of it. I mean, you're gonna if you go to the Instagram, you're gonna find all the links there.
Okay.
In like a link tree or something like that. It'll have links to where you can download the app, which is on your app store. So you'll find it on your phone. Nothing special you got to go to. You can find it on App Store for iOS or Google Play for Android. And it does something I hadn't even mentioned. If you have a MacBook, is it a newer version?
I have a Mac Studio.
Okay.
And
so
I
think so.
I have an AirBook and I have
so
MacBook Pro.
Anything with Apple, anything that is running their like Apple branded chips can run the app because they can run all iOS apps.
Oh, okay.
So you can also use this on your computer.
Sure.
And print from your computer if you wanted. Same with Chromebooks.
Gotcha.
So if you have one of those and you want to try the app and you prefer a computer system, you can do that as well. I'm not going to build a website for that. It's going to always be an app. So,
dude, thanks for taking the time out of your day.
Hey, Dan, I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Been awesome. Guys, check it out. Separation is in the preparation. We're going to catch you on the next one.